together for this educational summit. May this be one of inspiration, growth, and connection. Thank you for being here. Let us open our hearts to the opportunities ahead. God bless you and welcome.
Amen. Let me say thank you. I am Pastor Hale. Let me say thank you to everyone who have come out for this, our first Education Summit. Let us thank Dr. Bryan Johnson, the Superintendent for APS, for indulging us, and some of the board members who also have come to be with us on tonight. And thank you for not staying at home and understand the importance of educating our kids and making sure that our kids have a successful school year, as well as the parents being educated on the resources that are available and made available for each and every family. So we want to thank you for your presence on tonight. With that being said, let us enter into a word of prayer. Father God, we thank you tonight for your love, your grace, and your mercy. We thank you tonight for your presence in the midst of this education summit. We thank you for showing up. Now, Lord God, have your way. We thank you for the resources that you have provided us, both human, intellectual, Lord God. We thank you for those resources. We thank you, Lord God, for Dr. Bryan Johnson not thinking it robbery, but coming over here to share with constituents in the Ben Hill community, Lord God, and board members. We thank you for their presence. We thank you for the efforts that went into this, Sister Joan and all of the Secular Education Commission and how they toil day and night to bring this to fruition. We thank you for the facilitators on tonight. Now, Lord God, lead and guide us in this celebration. It is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Dr. Vicki. And
Good evening. Come on, I know you're a little bit more excited than that. Good evening. This is a great day. Thank you all for being here. I'm sure the pastor did a great job of thanking each of you. I want to echo the sentiment and thank you again. We are now going to break off into our workshop sessions. So if I can have all of my upper elementary students, if you're in grades 3 through 5, if you will stand over by Dr. Hensley. You're in grades 3 through 5. If you stand over there, we'll have someone escort you to your class. Grades 3 through 5. Now, if you're in grades kindergarten through the 2nd grade, I'm going to have Reverend Hale stand up, and I'm going to have him stand over there by AJ so that he can escort you all to the fellowship hall. So that's grades kindergarten through the 2nd grade. Meaning you graduated pre-K, you graduated 1st grade, now you're in the 2nd grade. The 3rd through the 5th, you're going to wait for me, and I'm going to escort you downstairs. K through 2nd, Reverend Hale. Downstairs. So, we have K through 2nd, we had 3rd through the 5th grade. If you're in middle school, that means you're in the 6th, 7th, or 8th grade. If you would please stand. And Reverend Allen is going to escort our middle schoolers upstairs to the Moloch Center. So this is Reverend Allen. If you're in middle school, you're going to follow Reverend Allen. has his hand raised. Middle schoolers. So our middle schoolers are going with Reverend Allen. And then if you're in high school, all of our high schoolers, I saw a bunch of you just walk in. All of our high schoolers, you're going to follow Evangelist Garner, who's going to raise her hand, and she's going to take you to your class. Pastor's still confused. Let's pray for him. We haven't had little kids in our house in a very long time, so. All right, so now I'm going to turn the adults over to Mr. Poindexter. Thank you all.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank our First Lady of the Church to have such confidence in me. But the thing that I want all of you all to realize, to know that I think with all of our lives, everything that we do, everything that we accomplish, everything that we are successful at, I think we need to give God all of the glory. And for that, I'm so grateful to be standing here in front of the Atlanta Public School Superintendent, as well as all of our guests and friends. I'm going to introduce my daughter, and my daughter is going to introduce the superintendent. This is my daughter, Simone Poindexter. Simone is a graduate of Clark Atlanta, class of 2011, and I believe she received a master's degree at Grand Canyon University in 2023, and she's currently working on her educational specialist at the University of West Georgia. Her mom, which is my wife, my ex-wife, was an assistant principal at the time of her retirement in the Atlanta Public Schools. She worked at Peyton Forest Elementary. And as I said earlier, I've been on this journey a long time, almost 45 years, 2 states, 4 school districts, and I've been called back a couple times out of retirement to work part-time. So I was committed to being an educator from the time I was about 5 years old. I told God this is what I wanted to do, and He's blessed me with a tremendous career that I am just so thankful and grateful for. So at this time, Simone will introduce our superintendent. We'll hear from Dr. Johnson. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Bryan Johnson, a former corporate executive and accomplished K-12 leader, serves as superintendent for Atlanta Public Schools, bringing the unique blend of corporate and educational leadership to the role. For nearly 2 decades, Dr. Johnson has dedicated much of his career to public education, serving as a teacher, school administrator, a district administrator. At the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, he provided critical counsel as the university completed its current strategic plan and led the development and execution of the 2025-2023 strategic plan. He brings extensive experience in educational leadership, workforce development, business strategy, change management, and collaborative leadership. Dr. Johnson has received numerous accolades for his leadership, including being named the 2021 Tennessee Superintendent of the Year by the Tennessee Organization of School Superintendents and honored as a National Superintendent of the Year finalist. He was also spotlighted as the Superintendent to Watch by the National School Public Relations Association and recognized as a 2020 Outstanding Young Alumnus by Austin Peay State University. He serves on numerous boards and is actively engaged in the Chattanooga community. Before his tenure in Chattanooga, Dr. Johnson spent 10 years in the Clarksville-Montgomery County School System, where he rose to the position of Chief Academic Officer. Under his leadership, the district was ranked #1 for student academic growth for 2 consecutive years. Dr. Johnson holds degrees from Austin Peay State University, Belmont University, and Trevecca University, where he earned a doctorate in educational leadership. He is married and has 2 children, one of whom is school age. I present to you Dr. Johnson.
Good evening. Thank you for that. Introduction. We need to update it. I'm active in Atlanta now, not Chattanooga. But appreciate Pastor Hale. Appreciate you all having us and affording us the opportunity to be here. I want to turn to my left, your right, because I've had the privilege of being a superintendent before and working with school boards, and I will say that I'm very, very blessed to have an awesome school board that's deeply engaged. So Miss Jessica Johnson, who is here tonight, and I have to count at large. I've almost learned it. At large seat, I can see it from the dais. Seat 9, right? And then Colton Pace, who jumped in January and has hit the ground running. And I don't want to get your district right. District 6. I was almost. District 6. So they are tremendous. And Ken Zelf will be joining us, and I think our board chair may join us as well. So again, I'm very, very privileged and very, very honored to work there. I see some familiar folks in front of me. I'm going to ask if you're an APS employee anywhere in the district, would you stand for a minute? We'd love to recognize. We've got principals, teachers. Thank you all for what if you've worked in APS before and you're retired. I saw one stand up here, but if you've worked in APS, stand up too. We want to recognize you. Thank you. Thank you for your service. So we're really, really excited about the work that we've started and the opportunity to serve in the. How long do I have? I didn't ask that. I didn't get clarity on that. I'm not going to talk for 40 minutes. I'm going to let y'all ask me questions. I'm going to talk really brief, and then I love, when I go places, I like to talk to people. I just like to talk to people, and so it scares some folks to death. Carl Hill just joined us, and so Carl will learn. I don't operate on a script very much. I let the Spirit move me, Pastor. My father was a pastor for more than 35 years, and so grew up in the church. And let me say this as a funny, I got an envelope with an invite. Well, I didn't know it was an invite. I got a priority envelope, and usually priority envelopes are lawsuits. I'm just being honest, and I get 1 or 2 a week. And so when I opened it, I was ready to read the first line and hand it off to the sister to get the legal, But I was so excited that it wasn't a lawsuit. I went on and read it. Where you want me to be? What time? So if you want to get to me, priority mail, send in an envelope, and I'll do my best to come. But appreciate you again having us. So we're really excited about the work that we've. Genzef is here. Thank you, Genzef. District 3? Yes, sir. Yeah, we're really excited about the work that we've started. I'll start with talk a little bit about my background, but I want to talk a little bit about my why really, really briefly, because I think it's important for you to understand who I am. My mother and father, tremendous people. My mother's passed. My mother was one of the first blacks to integrate the University of South Carolina, and education was always extremely, extremely important to her. I've said over and over again in different places that one of the things that she expected of me was like bring books home. And so I would often go home, and my backpack might be kind of light, and she would say, "Where are your books?" And I was like, "Well, my grades look good." And she said, "Well, I'm not as worried about your grades. I'm really worried about what you've learned." And so my family got a really deep appreciation for what education offered, and I believe that for the children of Atlanta Public Schools. We've had the opportunity to learn a lot about Atlanta. There's a lot still to learn. We're learning new things every single day. And, just to kind of take you along the journey, we started with a 100-day plan that laid out really the get-to-know-you phase of our work, but then also set out on some specific tasks of understanding what we needed to do and executing on some specific things. Academics are that's what I'm here for. I tell people all the time I'm here to improve student achievement. That's what they've hired me to do, and that's my chief responsibility. Unapologetically, the last 2 days we've had a chance to be with principals and assistant principals, and that is ultimately the work. And so we've started there. You'll find even then and now when I talk about our current strategic plan that literacy is a chief focus for us. It's a primary focus. It's one that, frankly, is a focus across the country. It's an area that's difficult to move, but it's one that I believe strongly we can move. And so we're really excited about some of the work that's going on in that space, and I'll talk briefly about that. And then, frankly, when we look at academics, we also have a big focus around making sure that our students are prepared post-graduation. And so last year, Atlanta Public Schools had its highest graduation rate. But one of the things we've said over and over and over again is, we don't want students to just graduate. We want them to graduate really prepared to matriculate and to move to the next thing and to know what that next step is. And I'm smiling because I've got a board member to my left right here, immediate left, right next to me, right here. I talk to my board frequently because I told somebody this, and I've learned this. We're in relationship, whether they want to be in a relationship with me or not. We're in a relationship, and every week I try to engage each of them if they so choose, and fortunately most of them do, and they are very clear about what they want and what they desire, and so we talk really transparently about making sure that students are prepared upon graduation and are positioned to be successful. And whether that's advanced placement opportunities, dual credit, dual enrollment, certification, and credentialing, we want to make sure that there's a pathway for students to, and frankly through, whatever that next phase is, and that students understand not just how to enter that next phase, but how to kind of move through that next phase. If I get this coursework and this credential, I can earn this. If I get, have this coursework and get this degree, I can earn that. Here's how I can move in my career field. So we've got a lot of opportunity there and a lot of streamlining that we're in the process of doing right now. But one of the things we saw early in the first 100 days. The other big thing when I move away from academics, because I have to push myself out of academics because I'll stay there for the entire time, is operations. And so we've really leaned in to operations. We had a challenging budget, still have a challenging budget, if I'm being really transparent. We had about $100 million deficit that we worked through, which forced us to make some really difficult decisions at the district office, frankly. When we look at making decisions, we try to make sure that we touch the schoolhouse last, because that's where the magic happens. That's where the work really happens. So we try to make sure that as we went through this budget cycle, that we addressed what we could at the district office. And so we made some challenging decisions. We got our budget balanced, but you balance the budget based on projections, and we had to wait on. That ain't the Lord calling you. I'm just messing. Just get you a yonder pouch. What was I saying? See, that's what happens when the cell phone go off. So we, we really had to lean in. We really have had to lean in to making sure that, operation we're sound. So our commercial index has come in. We've got some more work that we've got to go back and do, and we'll go back and do that. The board did a tremendous job prior to my arrival of leaning in from an operational standpoint, and I'll connect talent to the operation side too, or our people of investing in our teachers, and that's an important investment because, for us, what we understand is that teachers have the most significant impact, the research shows, on student learning. And it's really important that we have really high-quality teachers in front of our students every single day, in every single classroom, all the time, unapologetically. And so, two things go hand in hand, and principals heard this yesterday, that we want to offer to our schools high levels of support, but we also have high levels of accountability. And those two things go hand in hand. So when I look at our compensation of teachers, we want to be the best at the top of the compensation scale. We have high expectations for how our teachers are able and capable to move students. And one of the things that transpired as a byproduct of that investment is we saw last year much more experienced first year to APS teachers. And so to put some data to that, we went from about 61% of first year to APS teachers having 3 years or more experience to 81% of first year to APS teachers having 3 years or more of experience. And so we've been able to recruit teachers, frankly, from other school systems. And we care about all the school systems that are public school districts, but APS is the one that we are really focused on. So we openly go after the best and are unapologetic about that, and have done that and are doing that in the leadership ranks really as well. So the first 1 days were really, really busy, and that had been our focus. And then we began to pivot into our current strategic plan, which lays out 6 areas of focus, and obviously, we have a people component. We believe that our people are our strength, and we want to make sure, and we've said this pretty boldly, we believe there's a path to getting there that's pretty clear, that we want to make sure that our average teacher salary is $100,000 by 2030, and the path to get it. I saw some heads perk up. So if you hadn't got your certification, we can get you connected. We've got some programs that we offer, but we do, and there's a path to doing that. Right now, the average teacher salary in Atlanta Public Schools is right at almost $89,000 a year. So kind of mapped out, if we just 3% over the next few years, there is a path to getting there, and we believe if we continue to make some of those really difficult decisions, that we can do that. But in addition to that, we want to make sure that we're really thoughtful about the other things that are important to people. People will come to Atlanta Public Schools for money, but they stay because of the culture. We've got to make sure that the culture is right. Our leaders help set the culture. Leaders help set the tone, so leadership development is and will continue to be really important to us. We've made some investment in leadership development and done some reorganizing from a personnel standpoint in that particular space, and we're excited about what we believe will happen there. David White, who's a very experienced principal from Burgess-Peterson, former principal Burgess-Peterson, is kind of taking the charge on that. He has taken the charge in the last couple of weeks on that development, and has some really strong that's going to be really helpful to and for us. And we'll continue with compensation and all those things. The other thing that we think we have an opportunity to lean into is looking at this happened during a snow day. So during a snow day, we were boys and actually went to school on a delay. When we start to pull apart the data and look at what the delay would do to us from the standpoint of our employees being able to get there on time. In some of our employee groups, less than 40% of them live in Atlanta proper. So many of our employee groups are unable to afford the cost of living in Atlanta. Our teachers are no different. About 50% of our teachers live in Atlanta proper. And so, we believe there's an opportunity, and this speak to one of the bigger things that's ahead for us, to think a little bit differently about affordable housing and partnerships, in particular for our teachers and employees, and where there's opportunity to lean into that. We 100% want and desire to do that. So people is something that I really want to talk to that is really important to us because our people are our strength. The other thing that I'll speak to, academics will remain a focus. So our board approved the adoption of some core literacy curriculum. Last year there were some purchases made, but they were made around intervention types of things. We have to make sure that our teachers have a base, a core to operate from in a structured literacy approach that's really phonics based, and so we're really excited about the implementation of that. That's been ongoing, started really prior to our folks leaving school, which is really important to us as well, to make sure that our schools and our teachers have access to really high quality resources, in particular in literacy, but frankly across the board, is an area of importance to us. The other thing I would lift from our current strategic plan is that we know that our responsibility is shared. So opportunities like this to engage directly with you, tell you a little bit about what we're doing, but then also hear from you is important to us. That's why we're here. We need your support. We've got to have your support as we move forward, because we can't do this work alone. One of the things we say in our strategic plan is that we are Atlanta's public school system. It's not just Atlanta public schools. It's Atlanta's public school system. We are your public school system. There ain't no knock on Gwinnett, and there's no knock on DeKalb or anybody else, but there's only one Atlanta public school system, and we are that. And so we need your support in locking arms and helping us move the work forward. So appreciate everybody that put that on tonight. Put this on tonight. The last thing I would mention, and then I'll talk a little bit broadly about like our goals and kind of how we're measuring and monitoring, because I think it's an important element, is operations, right? We want to be efficient and effective in our operations. And there are things that we can and will continue to do internally. You'll see us move to a more performance-based contract model where folks that do business with us have a performance expectation. If you're going to do business with us, you're going to perform, right? Because when you contract with somebody, I told folks like this, when you contract with somebody, you expect them to do whatever that thing is better than you could do it, right? And so if we are doing business with you, we want to make sure that whatever you deliver on is something that you do better than us, or something that we couldn't do without you. And so we're moving to that to increase accountability, frankly, for ourselves, but for our folks that are investing in your public schools. And then there are other things. We've got some opportunity with energy efficiency. We spend about $25 million a year on utilities. I think it's important for people to get magnitude of kind of what we operate in the day-to-day. It's about $25 million. So next time you look at your light bill, just pay it. You know what I mean? I'm just messing. I get mad at mine too, especially right now when it's hot. So we've got some opportunity to be better there, and we've got some things in place. There are some we've got some controls and different things in place that allow us to be quasi-efficient in pockets, but we need to do better comprehensively and really work to push. Every dollar saved is another dollar we can put into schools, and we want to make sure that we're poised in position to do that. And so we've got a group that's running at some of that. The bigger thing that is right here, right now, is looking at our facility footprint. So our average per pupil expenditure runs from just a little under $12,000 per pupil all the way. Our range moves all the way to right at $30,000 per student. And what we find is in schools where we are spending 25, 26, 27 and up, the outcomes aren't always aligning, and more importantly, the outcomes are as important as the outcomes aligning. The experience is not as robust. The offerings are not as robust. And so we don't have the benefit of the economies of scale to be able to offer all the courses and all the supports and all the resources that we would really like to offer. So we've begun a comprehensive facilities review and are putting together a plan. We've got a third party, HPM, that's supporting us with that plan, and the facilities task force that's supporting us with some of those recommendations. But we want to move pretty quickly to a 5, 10, 15-year outlook, really making sure that we position our district to be successful. And that's going to take some that's going to take some tough decisions. That's going to require some really challenging conversations where we're going to need the community to help us grapple with our current state as is and what's to come. We're about in total a $1.8 billion budget. But again, I've said we had about a $100 million deficit to overcome this cycle, and we've got to find another $22, $23 million because of the commercial index. So these numbers aren't going anywhere. I'm just being honest with you. They're not going anywhere. And what I find historically, as I understand the history has happened, is we're passing that burden along to the homeowner, and it gets tougher and tougher on the homeowner. So we've got to grapple as a community with some really, really tough decisions and some really, really tough conversations. But I do believe ultimately we'll provide a more robust experience. The other side of the equation is it's not just about what we take away, it's about what we can do. And so as we look at things like the performing arts, I came from a community in Chattanooga, 750, 800 student performing arts school. And I get to Atlanta, and I say this jokingly, I've said this a few times, Tyler Perry shut down the whole street in Midtown, but we don't have a performing arts school. This is where it ought to be incredible, right? So there are things like that. I think there are things in possibly the IT space, there are things in possibly the medical space where we have some opportunities to strategically do some things, frankly, because of our budget compression and because our resources are spread so incredibly thin, we've not been able to necessarily thoughtfully lean into those spaces. So we're excited, not just about the A side of looking at how to become more efficient and effective, but also the B side of what might that offer us or extend us an opportunity to do. The last thing I'd say really quickly, and I'll turn to questions, and the board may, I'm sure, has some, will help with questions. Say that. Okay, so we're good. Right at the sweet spot. So the last thing I will say is one of the things this board has charged me to do, and I firmly believe in, is accountability. I don't have to wake up and be accountable. So there are key performance indicators in our strategic plan that lay out, and we owe to the board and will have to the board in the August session our current state, where we expect to be by 2030, and then the year-over-year growth that we expect in every area throughout those 6 that are within our strategic plan. And I always say very transparently, we're not going to hit every single goal, but I'm going to make sure KPI. But my responsibility is to be really transparent about where we are, how we got there, and what we're doing to improve. And or the story may be that we've blown the goal out of the water, and we need to really come back and say what's next much sooner than we thought. So you can expect us to be really open about that and really transparent about that. And then we do have 3 specific goals around literacy, around numeracy, and around college and career. And I'll end with this, I promise. I'm almost like a pre. I said, this is my 3rd I'll end. Well, the 4th one, I'm there, right? Just the real one, I'm done. So we've set the goal to move 20 percentage points from where we currently are. And so we're about 28% in numeracy, about 36% in literacy, and then we're in the 50s in college and career. So we've set the goal to move about 20 percentage, not about, but 20 percentage points in each of those areas. And the kind of eerie thing, I've referenced Krim, Dr. Alonzo Krim, who was former superintendent, first black male superintendent of Atlanta Public Schools 35, 40 years ago. and I've had our team read an article on Krim, and I didn't know this until I read the article, but it's funny how things kind of come full circle. One of his big charges when he went out was to move 20 percentage points. And so I think we're right back at that season where we can do some really bold things, but it's going to take all of us locking arms. So we appreciate you all giving us this opportunity, and we'll yield right now to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. At this time, we'll hear from the three board members briefly, and then if you have questions, go ahead and write them down, and we have a person, the young lady right there, you will give her your question, and it will be answered by either the board members or the superintendent. So let's hear from three board members briefly.
All right, good evening, everyone. I am happy to see you all. I am Jessica Johnson, your at-large Seat 9 representative for the Atlanta Board of Education. For those of you who haven't had an opportunity to meet, I replaced Jason Estevez's seat a couple of years back, and I actually live right here in Ben Hill community. I could have walked down here today. So happy to see you all here. I just want to echo the superintendent's commitment to the academic achievement. And now I try to give him every other week where we talk about rigorous course placement and post-secondary preparedness, because that is my field and my passion and my day-to-day job. But one of the things I would want to just do is just to challenge you all to continue to engage with Atlanta Public Schools. We need the voice of the South Side. As they say, the South Side has something to say. And I think that when we look at when the district sends out surveys, when there's opportunities to engage, there's not enough of us in the room to really make sure that our interests are expressed and heard for the children that we love and protect and care for on this side of town. And so I just want to really encourage you all to come to the board meetings. There's times for public testimony. Make sure you have my cell phone number so we can reach out and we can kind of actively work together to make sure that all children across the district are served in a spirit of excellence. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. Oh, that was about 80% of the room. Let's try it again. Good evening, everybody. All right, Rev, I'm a Rev as well, about 20 years in ministry, mostly youth and young adults, so this is home for me. Y'all should not have given me the mic, but I'm going to be obedient, and I'm going to take just a couple seconds. But excited to be with y'all this evening. My name is Tolton Pace. I am your District 6 representative, so this is, in fact, my district, the Thorough High Cluster and the South Atlanta Cluster. So this is family, this is home. Similar to Jessica, I live right down the street, going down Barge in Princeton Lakes, and grew up in this community. I like to say from the neighborhood for the neighborhood. So this is in fact home, and would love before we leave this evening to exchange information. Feel free to reach out about any and everything, any concern that you might have, and we're gonna get it taken care of sooner rather than later, if that's all right. Sound good? Excellent, excellent. This is a passion of mine. My wife is a 21-year educator in APS. Fickett, right down the street, is one of the schools that she's assigned to. The other is Garden Hills on the north side of town. And I've also worked in APS. So again, this is, as they like to say, we're not new to this. We are true to this. So this is something that I wanted to do since I was a kid in elementary school, and Dr. Krim was my superintendent. And so many folks don't say that. It's an astronaut, it's a lawyer, it's a doctor, it's something else. But this is literally the one job that I've always wanted to do since I was a kid. So I'm excited to serve, excited to connect, and excited to be your advocate and your ambassador. So thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. I am sorry I was late today. My name is Ken Zeff, and I've had a very busy day, but the single best part of the day was coming into this parking lot and seeing a full parking lot. I'm like, all right. It wasn't easy. I represent on the east side, Morningside, Virginia Highlands, Ansley, and some of the Cabbagetown, Roundstown part of the east part of Atlanta. But it does my heart so good to see a full parking lot and to see folks listening to this fella as he's telling you what's up. Give yourselves a round of applause. There are a lot of other places you could be on a Thursday night, and I know we all love going to church, and wish Sunday would come more often, but to come here on a Thursday night and be part of this conversation means a lot. we got a lot of work to do in Atlanta Public Schools. I used to be superintendent of Fulton County Schools before I ran for school board out on my part of town. More importantly, I got 3 kids in the system. And so actually one that's graduated now, and I got to give her a diploma just a couple weeks ago, and that was pretty special. We got the right leader. We got a leader that's listening, and a leader that is, I don't know, I missed your first part. Did you tell him what a shepherd's supposed to smell like? I just created this myself then, so if you haven't heard him say it. A shepherd's supposed to smell like sheep. And so when you walk a school with Bryan Johnson, and the principal says, hey, let's go into the office and let's talk about what's happening here, and Bryan says, no, let's go walk in classrooms. You tell me what you see, and then I'll tell you what I see. And that's the kind of leadership we need. We need hands-on. We owe it to y'all because we can be so much better than we are. And so thank you for showing up. I want to hear from you all.
Good evening, church. Thank you all for coming in. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, and the school board as well. So good to see your smiling faces. Okay, so we have 3 questions here that are kind of based on the idea of allowing the students to re-enter back into education and kind of trying to bridge those academic gaps. And then we also have a question that's kind of discussing the benchmarks to identify what it looks like when you guys are completing those goals. So the first question that we have here says, what specific steps is the district taking to ensure equitable access to mental health support, especially those who have experienced trauma or face socioeconomic challenges?
Great question. So one of the things I've been super impressed with in coming to APS is frankly the board and the district's commitment to whole child and social emotional, the needs that are there. And I think it's important you all leave here. I want you to have some data. And so in 2021, about $14 million was spent in the student services realm, which is all things whole child and student support. To date, it's over $28 million. So it's doubled, and I think that's a recognition that the board had that pandemic exacerbated a bunch of the issues that were already there underlying. And so some level of increase in counselors, psychologists, et cetera. We'll continue all those things. We are pivoting a little bit to decentralize some of those resources. We're trying to make sure that those resources are really getting to the ground. Patricia Ford, who was the former principal at South Atlanta, is serving in an interim capacity as leader of student services. And frankly speaking, we're transitioning to more of a care team model where every cluster has a group of people that are assigned to them. They also have some metrics connected to it, right? So we look at things like chronic absenteeism. They'll be looking at things like the disproportionality in discipline, suspension rates, and things that are happening from that standpoint. But it's an absolute commitment that we have and will continue to have. And I think it's important to say this, and the board has pushed me on that. I'll turn in the board member to add too. But this is one of those areas that you make investment in. A lot of time, it's hard to put a like tangible feeling on what the impact has been, but you kind of know you're doing the right thing. And so what we've tried to do is to get stronger with saying we were here and we've gone to there, and that's what we're doing through the strategic plan and through the entire process. I keep saying this, last thing I'll share, but I will tell you the other thing I'm really impressed with is the way in which our police department interacts and interfaces with our student services department and the Atlanta Police Department, the Fulton County Sheriff Department, et cetera. And there's not a night that goes by, this is no lie, not a night that goes by during school, when school is in session, that I'm not on a text chain with the group of people that are providing supports about a student. It could be anything from Bryan Bryan didn't come home on time and mama's looking for him, to Bryan expressed some suicidal ideations to somebody in the class, and we send at any time of the night, um, in particular in those instances, our police department goes to the house, knocks on the door, confirms the kid is safe, communicates with the parent what the child has communicated, and asks them to physically bring them. And that happens literally, almost not necessarily a suicidal ideation, but something happens every single day of the week in school. And so there's some good systems that are in place, that good communication structure that allow us to bring that support to the parents.
So it seems as if the school department is also relying on the integration of the police department to kind of have that backbone support. Okay.
And to pick up on that too, our police department, is Atlanta Public Schools Police Department. So it is, a couple years ago, it was an APD, and APD doesn't know our kids like APS does. And so every one of our police they're sworn officers, but they are trained in working with kids, not de-escalating, not escalating. Just one other piece I wanted to pick up on was, when we talk about mental health, again, I'm speaking as a father here, is the strong stance the district has been taking and will take this coming year on cell phones. I believe cell phones are in schools, not cell phones in general, but cell phones during the school day are undermining the education process. And I believe we're going to look back 10 years from now, and we're going to say, we let our kids do what in schools? Like, we're going to look at it the way we look at smoking now. Wait, smoking, are you really sure you want kids to do that in the school? Of course not. And we have let kids, we've created an environment where kids feel comfortable texting, social media, being on their phone all. There we go. Did I get it? Y'all understand this? I mean, so if you're around kids, try getting them to look up at you. It's not easy.
Mic check.
At Midtown High School, which is where my kids go, and they piloted this Yonder Pouch thing that Dr. Johnson referred to. It doesn't have to be Yonder Pouches, but you walk through the cafeteria in a high school that's taken away cell phones, and the first thing you notice is how loud it is. Because kids are talking to each other. And that helps with their mental health. That helps with them getting to know each other. I mean, my kids would say, well, if there's nobody before the cell phone ban, if they're not sitting next to a friend, they're just on their phone all day. I'm like, well, why don't you all talk to somebody? He's like, well, no, I don't know that person. They're not my friend. Well, that's actually life, right? You walk into rooms, you don't always know anybody. And so getting kids to break out of their shell and not rely on their cell phone, I think you're going to see a huge gain. And I appreciate Dr. Johnson taking leadership on this. You want to describe the policy for next year?
Yeah, thank you. No, it's a good. Appreciate you bringing it up. So in truth, the policy, the district's had a policy since 2019 about personal electronic devices. In this legislative session, it's been approved, actually not for this upcoming year, but for the next year, that in K-8, that all personal electronic devices are not going to be allowed in public schools. We've taken the position that K through 12, that's where we're going to be. And I too am a father of Atlanta Public School student, which is a unique seat to be in as superintendent, and I can speak firsthand to what I've seen from my son. So when I get a little bit of pushback from parents, I say bring it, because I'm not as worried about. I have context. I have personal context as superintendent. I'm not doing it unto you. I'm doing it with you, and I'm taking a cell phone from my baby too, and my baby gonna be just fine. You know what I mean? In fact, he's gonna be better because we're gonna get focused on teaching and learning. I didn't raise this, but one of the things we are talking a lot about is back to the basics. We're going to get back to the foundations of teaching and learning, what quality teaching and learning is. We're going to get back to the basics of, like, let's lock in on learning. All this other stuff is out here. It's going to be here. But if you don't have anything between, that's developed, it's for naught. And so we're leaning in. It's going to be a fun August, and by September, folks will be fine. But I'm ready for the Let's Talk and the emails to come. They will be ready, but we got to lean in.
gonna give the same question over to the board, and also kind of follow up with asking you about the deficiencies that the superintendent mentioned about how we're getting to a place where possibly there might be some roles taking out of the department. And I know that when it comes to ensuring that students have that community in the school, the social workers and the people who are the counselors are really the ones who are able to be that stepping stone for them in that place of comfort. So do you feel like in the last year where we heard how there was an increase of your first year teachers, did that also include school counselors? Did that also include social workers as well?
Yep, great question. So kind of two thoughts. One, just kind of dovetailing what was shared. There's a new resource that the system has called Talk It Out. And it is a 24-hour hotline of sorts, if you will, and happy to share the number. But for any student, any time of day, they can text this number if they need to talk to somebody, they're having certain types of thoughts, they're feeling depressed, any number of things related to mental health and well-being. We now have that system available and accessible to all students across the district. So I'll share it real quick with you. It's 844-935 0933, and happy to give it again afterwards if we need to.
One of the things that I'll just add is that we really cannot do this work alone. If you think about the percentage of a child's life that is spent in school during the school day, it really is a community effort. And so one of the things that I'm happy about is that the district has very strategic partnerships with organizations like Chris 180 and a number of others that supplement some of the supports and resources that we're able to provide directly from staff and administration with Atlanta Public Schools, and also looking at what does that look like for some of our after-school partners, and how do we really kind of build a continuum of support around our children so that they can be successful and whole.
One quick thing I would mention is Atlanta Public Schools is a charter school system. So as a charter system, there's strong local governance at the school level. So in general, what we do is allocate dollars to the school, and the school makes a determination on kind of how they're going to fill out the staff with what's called a GO team, which is kind of that local governance team. And so to speak specifically, did counselor numbers go up or social worker numbers go up? I don't know that. So we'll go back and dig into. But what I do know is that schools are thinking through what the needs are for their individual school with that.
Okay, the next question is going to get real, for sure. Okay, so it says, what impact will the potential elimination of the Department of Justice and the Department of Education have financially on the APS, if any?
You want to take first crack, and then we can add?
And I do ask you that you kind of pertain to the idea that you are going in the direction of making sure that your students are not only having those resources going to college, but that post-graduation support as well.
Yeah, we're in kind of nutty times right now. Let me just start with that, and that's an understatement, right? And you read the news every day, and it's something else, and you're just trying to figure out what's real, what's not real. So just a quick overview on school finance. So we get about 10% of our budget from the federal government. Most of our revenue comes from property taxes and from state. And so that 10% basically goes to cover two programs. For one's Title I, which you may have heard of, is for kids who are on the free and reduced lunch program, and then for something called IDA, which is special education. So those are the two big buckets that come through. So far, those two buckets have stayed okay. With what the federal government has frozen for reasons that are, you just can't. I couldn't even fill an index. I can't even tell you why. But after-school programs, AmeriCorps programs, some of these programs around schools, and some of it is likely to have an impact on what we do in the day-to-day. But I don't think you're going to see it anytime soon in our schools. I mean, because most of our money is from the state, and we've done a pretty good job of trying to be conservative. We are blessed in Atlanta that our taxpayers have been very generous. We are the highest funded district really in the state of Georgia, and that allows us to do things like also be the highest paying for teachers in the state of Georgia. Those are things that what I'm most concerned. So the short answer is we don't know what's coming next because you just don't know. What I am concerned about, and Dr. Johnson's really helped us weed through this, is where do we? And this is a question that we talk about all the time as a board. Where do we stand up and push back, and where do we recognizing that could put our kids at risk? And so we talk about immigration as just one, and this is on so many different levels, but just pick immigration, for example. So we know our kids, and Atlanta doesn't have a huge population of kids that would be at risk, but we have kids that would be at risk for immigration action. Do we put Dr. Johnson in front of a camera and say, no more, stay away from our kids? And by doing that, do we put a target on the backs of our kids? These are not easy questions, and these are something that we as a group struggle with, and we want to make sure that we want to make sure that our kids know that we stand beside them. At the same time, we don't want to go so far as to make them targets, because this administration loves to go after cities. They love to go after cities that are run by Democrats. They love to go by cities that didn't vote for them. And so, read the papers. So that's not my interpretation. That's their language. So it is a delicate balancing act. But we welcome our community input on this, because we struggle with making sure we find the right way forward.
I'll just add briefly to Ken and Jessica's point about not knowing what's going to happen next, right? We are being proactive. I come from the nonprofit and grant-making world, and so one of the things we always talk to our nonprofit partners about is, if this funding that we're giving you were to stop, how do you plan to sustain the programming? How do you plan to keep this great work going in the community? And so kudos to our team and Dr. Johnson's team is that we're actively in pursuit of partnerships and opportunities where we can either secure dollars from corporate entities or philanthropic entities or foundations that will help us to do some of the work that might be impacted, and certainly work beyond that as well. So certainly partnerships, philanthropy are things that we're actively exploring to ensure that, as things kind of happen across the U.S. landscape and federally, that we would minimize the impact that it would have on our students.
You guys covered large chunks of it. The only thing I might add is that even though there are executive orders and a number of federal mandates that are being passed, that does not impede our ability to continue to do the work that we are committed to doing in Atlanta Public Schools. We still want every student to have access to a strong academic rigor. We're still committed to high quality teaching. Nothing about what we are doing day to day has to change legally, and I think I'm afraid to use the word promising, is that a lot of the orders are being rescinded. You see, like, some of the AmeriCorps funding is being restored because it can't stand, right? Those kinds of policies and procedures can't stand, and they can't sustain themselves. And so just know that collectively as a board, I feel comfortable speaking for my colleagues that we're going to continue to do the work that we know we're supposed to do. And even though we might not be as vocal about it, behind closed doors, we're all super committed, and we're standing behind the superintendent as he executes his strategic plan.
I can add one more quick thing. One hobby here we have in Atlanta is voting. Right? We have elections all the time here. Vote. Voting matters, especially for governor, because the state, whatever's going to happen in Washington is going to happen in Washington, but the state is sitting on a huge budget surplus. They could fill in these holes tomorrow. They have the resources. What we need is a governor that has an education strategy, and I'm not here endorsing anyone, although one of the candidates did serve on this board, Jason Estevez, but any of the candidates could do the work. We have the resources. We just have to have the will, and the voters help hold the folks to
I love that we are having this conversation in the A.M.E. church, especially because the A.M.E. was responsible for the literacy of a lot of even just the black colleges that were were because of A.M.E. churches. So I'm glad we're having this conversation in here. The next question that we have is the last question. So it says, will APS even consider bringing mild intellectual classrooms back to help those students with difficult needs and bridge the gap? I guess this is pertaining to the idea that when COVID happened and students were reintroduced back into the classroom, there was kind of maybe a lack of transition for them. It was probably maybe a little jolting for some of the students to have to find themselves not only back in the classroom, but kind of being reintroduced to academia that they weren't prepared for when they left. Or even that they weren't prepared for while things were remote. Something like you said, a teacher kind of needs to be in the classroom with them for. So I think this person just wants to see where that bridging is going to happen or what the benchmarks are to kind of acknowledge and measure what that bridge looks like and how you guys are completing that.
Yeah, I want to be able to answer that question. So if it's somebody, please email specifics. In particular, if it's your child, I say this to everybody. I love these opportunities. They give us a chance to talk really transparently, but also there's some limitations because sometimes people don't want to share their specific situation. Our encouragement, Bryan.Johnson. Don't email that superintendent one, okay? bryan.johnson@apsk12.org. I promise you, you'll get a response pretty quickly, and I will, it ain't we, like you're going to hear from me, and we'll follow up and track down what's going on. And that gets to the answer, like there's not a blanket answer to that particular question, right? We're not necessarily going to roll out a blanket strategy, but it may be an individual issue that somebody's having. Let me say this more broadly from a blanket standpoint. I had the fortune coming in, the board initiated an audit of exceptional education, and that audit has helped to drive many of the decisions that we've made. We've got new leadership in that department, and frankly, if I just watered it all the way down, and I will. Customer service is the biggest. I'm a former special educator, so it's near and dear to my heart personally. But we found there were opportunities to serve our families better, and Dr. Shatina Love and that team have really began to lean into that. And we're hypersensitive to this reality that when a child comes to us with an exceptionality, we have them for 7.5 or so hours a day. In so many cases, parents living with that child, and depending on how profound the disability is for the rest of their lives. And so, it's always a reminder to me, and I share with others, like we need to be really intentional with our service to and for students and their families, and we've really ramped that up. The investment in special ed has increased, frankly, this budget cycle by more than $25 million. And what's driven that is identification. There's an increase in the identification of students, and then there is an increase, frankly, this is post-pandemic, in the needs of students. And there have been organizations, whether the grassroots, on the ground, Atlanta Thrive is one that comes to mind, that have really charged and challenged us and held us accountable as a district to delivering and doing better for our students. So I want to say things are on the uptick, but I also want to say there's a lot of work to do. And I also want to say, third point, I also want to say, straight PK all the way means trouble. I also want to say, if you have an individual child, if you're anybody in here, if you've got a child or grandchild, whatever it is, that's got an individual situation, please reach out to us. You can reach out to myself. You can reach out to Shatina Love. That's SHATEENA.love@apsk12.org. Reach out to us directly. Let us know your situation. Let us get it connected with the coordinator and lean into the individual situation. That's what exceptional education is. It's the individual needs of the child.
And I definitely want to just give a chance to the school board, because I know that just as an educator in my experience, I know that parents sometimes do, utilize those resources, and they do go to the teachers. However, they are met with kind of like a blockade of being like, I'm sorry, we can't give you those credentials. I'm sorry, I can't sign off on your child having this type of disability. How are you all combating that? How are you guys making sure that those students or those parents are kind of feeling like they can be supported in that pathway?
So I think one of the best roles that we have an opportunity to play as board members is advocacy, right? And so I know that when I hear from families, and because I'm an at-large member, I get to hear trends, right? And so if I've heard something at least 3 times, I elevate that to something that we need to address rather urgently. And I want to just really commend Dr. Johnson, because when I bring it to him, so far it hadn't been a week where he hadn't at least let me know what was going on with whatever the challenge is. I forward the emails from parents. I send during the weekly call, I have my list of advocacy opportunities. And so I would really encourage you all to use your board members. We're your representatives. Really utilize us as the first line of defense. That is a core part of our role, to make sure we know where there might be gaps, right? We're dealing with a $1.8 billion district. We don't know what's not working well. We're not in the schools every single day. We're not in the classrooms. And so it really is important for you all to see us as your first line of defense to ensure that your children are supported.
I think that was our last question. So I want to thank our board members, our superintendent, of course, and the wonderful members of Bethlehem. I mean, I really am just so glad you guys were able to not only have these questions, but St. Mark's, I'm sorry, I'm still in Boston in my mind. But I'm so glad that you guys were able to come together. It's one thing, to get the students to show up, but in a place like Boston, they drop off the kids and they go. So I'm so glad you guys, parents, you guys stayed as your community, and just keep understanding that it is the church, that is the community that's going to continuously step up and make sure that our children are not only educated, but that they have that possibility for those pathways. So I love that you guys are supporting as well. If you have any other extra questions, please let me know. I'll make sure that I get that email and that talk number to be able to be sent out to those emails that registered with us. Thank you.
Okay, at this time is Reverend John Young. Where is he? Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, so where are we, Doctor? Sister Gregory, come on up.
Or to leave. Atlanta Public Schools is one of our districts inside of our region for Metro RISA. And I'll tell you all a little bit about Metro RISA and all the things that we encompass. But everything that they talked about here, we amplify on a regional level across all of the 13 Metro school districts. So I wanted to say thank you all for having me come. And I know as a member here, you all know me as Kim. But in the rest of the world, they know me as Miss Gregory because of the work that I do that leads the dyslexia endorsement here in the region. So I wanted to tell you first a little bit about Metro RISA, next slide, because you all need to know as constituents and as folks in the community what a RISA does and what RISA provides for you all across the state. So Metro RISA represents Region 4, and Metro RISA has the 13 Metro districts. But Metro RISA is only one RISA inside of the entire state. So a RISA actually sits on the governor's budget, and we actually do all of the work for the Georgia Department of Education at the regional level. So while Atlanta Public Schools is one of the districts that you all hold near and dear to your heart, the reality is that the work that takes place at a RISA is the work that drives what they do for your students on a day-to-day basis. So many of you all know about a principal, right? You know that there's a superintendent, right? You know that there are teachers and all these people who work at district offices. But the reality is that the work that really is being done and being asked of your students to do is coming from regional offices like RISA and from the Georgia Department of Education. The one title as a parent and as a constituent that you may want to zone in on and think about when you figure out, like, what do I need to do? Who do I need to reach out to if I want to, ask questions, or I'm concerned about what my student is learning and why they're having to do certain things, is that you want to scroll and look for whoever has that word program in front of their title. So a program specialist or a program manager is the person who is creating the programming that is being required for principals, teachers, and superintendents to do on a day-to-day basis in our state. Now, next slide. Inside of Metro RESA, many of the offices that are there are also GLRSs. So GLRS stands for Georgia Learning Resource Services, and GLRS is the special ed arm to all of the Office of Special Education Programs and Supports in our state. So GLRS is also the other office that I work for, and GLRS provides all of the compliance. They set the benchmarks for special ed. They determine why you have certain classrooms the way that they're set up, because they're being pushed down from federal mandates and federal laws. And so Georgia Learning Resource Systems, there are 11 in the state. The 11 GLRS offices all support the school districts, the state charter schools, and the therapeutic sites that are across the state. So our GLRS is Metro West GLRS, and Metro West GLRS actually supports Atlanta Public Schools, Clayton County, DeKalb, Cobb County, Marietta City, and all of the state charters that are here. Next slide. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to speak to you tonight about my other role as your dyslexia endorsement coordinator for the region. I do other things than set up Zoom calls for all of you all during the week. So as the dyslexia endorsement coordinator, it speaks to the huge initiative that's happening in our state, and I wanted to share with you all some of the things that are being expected or required of your students so that you can share it not just with your family, but other families as well. So the dyslexia endorsement that is at Metro RESA is ran by me, and I have 20 instructors, and we have ran over 65 cohorts. Next slide. And the 65 cohorts that have taken place or that have ran across our region since 2021 has been a massive undertaking. So an endorsement is where a teacher receives the skills and the certification to be able to teach or provide services to a student. There are approximately 13 school districts who have engaged in this work, but the reality is that there are a lot of folks who have not been trained to be able to provide the support that Senate Bill 48 is requiring. So if you see on the pictures up here, you can see me with our state superintendent, Richard Woods, and they both on the panel, they all talked about Jason Estevez, who's up here on the right, who actually is a friend of the endorsement. He is a friend of Cobb County. He is my representative where I live at. But Jason Estevez has been responsible for a lot of the funding that we were able to receive to be able to roll out the dyslexia law and also all of the dyslexia supports. And then, of course, in the next slide, it just speaks to the fact that beyond just creating curriculum, creating programming and support, we have to do a huge job of community advocacy. So the community advocacy, the work that we've done since 2011, has allowed for us to continue to get funding. So the more that you all advocate to legislators, it allows for us to do the work in public education. There is nothing that is done that is not precipitated by just a conversation. So as folks who are getting more and more strategic in supporting kids in schools, as you all are. She's the young lady, I don't know where she went, who spoke about the A.M.E. church. The reality is that speaking and having events like this is what allows for information that relates to supporting our students, for those voices to be elevated. So for me, that picture that's at the bottom, that was a town hall back in 2022, I believe. And there were 2 school board members that were on there, Becky Saylor And then, of course, Alicia Thomas Searcy, who ran for state school superintendent, who's a friend of mine. All of us were on that panel, and from there, two out of the school board members who serve on Cobb County actually took the dyslexia endorsement. And from that, they actually had 23 cohorts that ran through our office, and that allowed for us to not only get more teachers trained in dyslexia supports, but Cobb County right now is leading the way in the amount of folks who are endorsed and ready to teach and support kids with dyslexia. Next slide. So the question at this point is, why is this so important? It's so important because we have kids who are having characteristics of dyslexia in our state that are at astronomical numbers. 1 in every 3 students and 1 in every 3 children have some characteristic of dyslexia that has been untreated or, for the most part, has not been detected up until 2024-2025 school year. The young lady who I'm standing with, Carrington Munoz, was Miss Georgia Teen. She was Miss Cobb Teen first, but that was actually her platform to talk about dyslexia and how it impacts her as an individual. Next slide. So our program completion data, if you can see, I had 1,100 completers in this program, right? That's nothing. Because Metro represents 49% of the entire state of Georgia in terms of the student population. At the end of this year, we're up to close to 2,000 that I have endorsed, but there are also other EPP programs that have the dyslexia endorsement as well. I also am part-time faculty at Kennesaw State University, where I actually help develop their curriculum as well for dyslexia. So even if one of my school districts doesn't choose the recent endorsement, they end up having to come back to me anyway when they go to KSU. So the CAB found that out the hard way. But anyway, so those students who are in those endorsements are also supporting and learning about the things that are necessary for supporting kids through structured literacy, which the superintendent here just spoke about, but also how they are supposed to provide supports. And I'm going to give y'all some tidbits before I leave tonight. All right, so why are we concerned about this in our state? So the dyslexia prison paradox is very real. 50% of the folks who were imprisoned in Texas state penitentiaries showed that they all had characteristics of dyslexia that was never treated. Most folks who have dyslexia, because there has not been proper legislation to have them screened or identified, actually end up being misdiagnosed with ADHD. So if you ever wonder, why is it that, I have a kid with ADHD and, they told us to give them medicine and they told us to do this and that, when the reality is that some of the same characteristics that show up in dyslexia really is what the problem was. It wasn't that they had ADHD or that they needed to be in an EBD program. So a long time ago, not a long time, but before I came to Metro RESA, I was the behavior specialist for all 21 schools in Southwest Atlanta in APS. And one of the things with me that is different is that I had a clinical background in behavior from Johns Hopkins, where I actually worked in clinical trials working with students who had behavior disorders or who were twice exceptional. And I kept saying, I was like, you all want me to put them in a behavior program, but this is not classic EBD. This is not clinical EBD. This is not a behavior disorder. And the reality was that if we had done severe screening like we're doing now through the legislation in Senate Bill 48, probably would have found out that many of these kids actually had a reading deficit or had dyslexia. Next slide. So for me, this is more than just us doing the work of getting folks endorsed. It's about educating teachers and educating administrators that the programming that we are putting in place across the state is to ensure and make sure that we do not continue to put kids in this pipeline for not only prison, but for misdiagnosis. That's literally what we have been doing across many of the southern states. So in relationship to our partners, the International Dyslexia Association is the definition that we use or that we have adopted in our state to identify and to define for us how we are looking at dyslexia. So that's the big definition of it, right? But here's the long and short. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability, but it has to be treated with systemic structured literacy instruction that is supported by comprehensive repetitive behaviors through a multisensory approach. All right, so that's a big word, right? That's a lot, right? But the long and short is that you have to be strategic with how you teach a student with dyslexia reading. You have to make sure that you are consistent and repetitive. And you have to acknowledge the fact that you can't just teach reading by talking. There has to be kinesthetic, tactile. It has to be a multisensory approach where they are learning how to take in new words. And the idea that we can ask kids to just sound it out, they can't just sound it out. There has to be a more comprehensive process with that. Next slide. So inside of the state of Georgia, many of the things that they've identified is that in a school of 300 students, that translates to at least 15 to 30 children who have dyslexia. And now that we actually have real live data, let me tell you how more severe this is across the state and why most of my work actually is now outside of Metro and supporting these districts because they have staff here to do it. Dyslexia is a family affair. It means that it is hereditary and that there are some parts of it that's passed on from one parent or may skip a generation, but it is a neurobiological disorder and it follows the family and the genes. So if you think about rural Georgia, if you think about places where everybody stayed there, they've never left, right? So I'll say Randolph Clay or Cuthbert, Georgia, right? Everybody's been there, nobody's left. We actually have schools right now where there are more than 65% of the kids who, after they did the screener, were identified with characteristics of dyslexia. That means pockets of dyslexia are existing within our state in various regions, and it's not just a situation that's impacting Metro, it's actually impacting our rural areas the most. Next slide. So one of the things that Senate Bill 48 provides for us and tells us is that, one, the definition has to be in place and everybody has to know what the definition of dyslexia is, if you are a teacher. Two, there has to be a list of approved dyslexia screeners. So as a state, we have worked inside of all of the advisory boards since 2011 to come up with this consistent list of how are we going to screen every kid in the state of Georgia. So last school year, 2024-2025, if you all have a grandkid, a niece, a cousin, a baby, if they attend public school, every child in the state of Georgia was screened. All right? So now, the next question should be, well, Kim, how do you know that? I know that. So, thank you. So the reason we know that is because written inside of Senate Bill 48, we took a different approach when working with the legislators. And it is required for every superintendent to actually upload that information into the portal that goes to the state superintendent's office. So it is not a situation where we rely on principals, where we rely on schools. The superintendent has to say, okay, y'all are saying that we have 300 students in Atlanta Public Schools and they have dyslexia. If that's the case, he has to sign off on that and submit the button. And then it comes to the DOE. So this year, everybody was not in compliance. And so I'm just going to be honest with you. I have spoken to people about this before. I have been at work. I was at Trillis with Studios. They had a huge conference with educators from around the country talking about how to support with literacy and how the movie industry can support these literacy initiatives we had. And I literally had a deputy superintendent from one of the districts who knows the power of ERISA, and she just said, I just hate that you all are making us do this. Why are you making us do this? Every kid just can't read. All kids just aren't going to read. And for you all to make us do this is just so unfair. We have other things we have to do. And the reality is that really is just a sentiment that some people feel when it comes to these literacy initiatives. And yes, everybody believes educators are great and educators want to do all these things, but there's a reason why we have to have compliance offices like ours to ensure and make sure that the work actually really is being easy work, especially when we have districts who don't necessarily want to provide the funding to make sure that programming is taking place. One good thing I will say about Atlanta Public Schools is that they lean heavily on us. We have ran an endorsement in Atlanta Public Schools since 2022 to get people endorsed with dyslexia. All of our program managers actually are leading the work in their district and for literacy, for structured literacy, and for the literacy programs in which they are creating. So outside of Atlanta, though, there are bigger questions that continue to be asked. And for you all, you may want to know, actually, what can I do as a constituent and as a parent or a grandparent? Well, the first thing is that you need to ask your child, have they been screened? Right? And when I say your child, like your adult child, or you can say, hey, you were in school, did they do a test to let you know how you're doing on reading? The screener has to be administered before August 31st every school year. All right? This is only done for grades K through 3. All right? So this is K through. So I know some people will be like, well, Kim, what happened to all the other kids who are already gone and 2024, 2025 school year is over? Well, that's a whole nother set of work that hopefully I can get to after I finish this doctorate. All right, so the other related disorders that could show up is that it could be aphasia, which is definitely, it impacts organization and processing. Dyscalculia, which impacts the way in which they address math concepts, and dysgraphia is dyslexia that shows up in writing. Dyslexia, next slide. Dyslexia shows up in a variety of ways. Next slide. And so for you all, it's you all being able to figure out how is it that I'm supposed to support my students. I know everybody's tired. Go ahead, you can skip the next slide. I kind of talked about the reporting already. So the first thing that they have to do is that they have to be able to identify for you all whether or not they know each component of structured literacy. So earlier, the superintendent spoke about this, but this is actually a statewide initiative. But every child has to be able to learn reading now, looking at all of the different components of structured literacy. So let's say, for instance, that you have a student and their teacher is saying, oh, well, I'm going to teach your kiddo how to read this school year. What part of reading are you teaching? So we should be able to hear it say, oh, we're going to focus on phonics this week. We're focusing on syllables, phonemic awareness. And I'm just going to be honest, the staff that we are training now, it's going to take a while before everybody is there. But to speak to that specificity when it comes to reading instruction is something that's lost upon a lot of our teachers. Next slide. The other piece that is important to point out is that there is a process for parents to be educated. How many of you all this past school year came into the school and someone said, okay, hey, this is what we're doing relates to dyslexia, House Bill 538 or Senate Bill 48. Did anybody go to a PTA meeting, session, if they have a school-age child? Did anybody in the school talk to you all about any of this? Did you get a letter or a pamphlet? Maybe, okay, all right. Okay, so let me say this. It is a part of the law that you all have to be made aware of what's happening to your student or whoever, your grandchild, your niece or nephew, when it comes to how they're learning about dyslexia. 2, there has to be a process for providing parents an opportunity to not participate in screening. You don't have to participate, but I'm going to tell you all, do not let anyone say, no, I'm not going to participate, because you should take advantage of this free screening. 3rd, there is a process for monitoring. So if your child comes home and says they have a characteristic of dyslexia, the school has to tell what is the progress monitoring process. And this is all gen ed. Okay? That means that they're a general education student. They are with all the other students receiving this. No one should feel as though they have to have their student go into special ed services anymore in order to receive the instruction that the school should provide for dyslexia. It is not a special ed function anymore. Every child should be receiving support for dyslexia as a gen ed student. If they need intensive supports, MTSS or the multi-tiered system of support school will be able to let them know. Next slide. they'll be able to let you all know if additional things are needed. Also, the school has to give you an opportunity to get parent consent, meaning that they have to ask your permission if they need to do an additional screener. They only can screen once. They cannot screen twice without a parent's permission. So, how many of you all, by raise of hand, think that dyslexia is just reversals of letters? Okay, that's okay. All right. So, reversals of letters is only one way in which dyslexia can present. There are quite a few other ways in which dyslexia can present for a student. All right. One is their inability to break down or identify letters and symbols, meaning that they can see a T, but it's beyond them that the sound T goes with T, or that if there's an A, that it relates to that letter. So it doesn't matter what language that a child knows, dyslexia can show up in any language. Is that there's no way for them to create a sound that goes with the character that is in front of them. The other piece is that they often have really high intelligence, average or better, but just like with ADHD, they just assume that maybe they have ADHD, when the reality is that they're still struggling to process letters and symbols. Also, broad language can be a concern for comprehension, and there's also core difficulties not only in decoding but also in fluency. All right? So in our state, there's a process that we've used to select the screeners. And so on the state website, there are 5 screeners that we've chosen for everybody to use in our state. So when everybody checked in, you got a flash card. Did everybody get the card? All right, so that card, next slide, that card is for you all to upload and put as many information inside of that zip drive as you want relates to dyslexia, because I'm going to give you all some links and some information. And so there's a piece in the back, and it pops off, and it's a USB. And please disregard the back. My office loves me very much. I've been there 11 years, and I know they want me to be Dr. Gregory right now, but I am not Dr. Gregory yet. But they have started printing stuff, and I keep telling them, you have got to stop. But anyway, that just means I got to finish. All right, so what should my teachers know? So if you go in for back-to-school night, I want you to feel confident and okay to ask questions like this, all right? We are A.M.E. We are Christians. We know that God loves our kids and our babies, but we also have to advocate for them, right? So it's okay for you to say, hey, I know you're going to be teaching my kiddo this year, but how familiar are you with Scarborough's reading rope? Because if they don't know what Scarborough's reading rope is, they're not going to understand that all of these components with structured literacy are woven together. And it's not for you to say, aha, I got you. It's to say, okay, well, let me know how I can be a support and get some resources to you. And then I can give you offices and locations where they can give you free materials to share. All right? Next slide. The next thing you want to say is that you want to ask them, okay, you're working with my student. You know a little bit about Scarborough's rope. But what are you all going to do to support students who are struggling with spelling? And they may have already been identified with characteristics of dyslexia, because it's not failing them. It's a question of what strategically are you going to do to support that. The second thing is, how are you organizing spoken and written language in your classroom? So when you ask the kids to do something, are you just putting it on the board? Do you have a recording or something that they can look at auditorily later so that they can look back at it? Do you have an actual physical example of what that word is or those letters are in your classroom every time you introduce it? And when you ask students to memorize number facts, what assistance do you give students when they're asked to memorize a number fact? Is it anchored in the classroom somewhere where they can go back and visit it? Is it provided in multiple repetitious ways, those are the kind of things you want to ask educators. And you all are free to have this PowerPoint after I leave. Next slide. The foundational reading skills that you want to make sure that they have access to. Next slide. The foundational reading skills you want to make sure that they have access to as well is that they're able to recognize and spell common orthographic patterns. And that would be something that's a little bit more in detail. I don't want to overwhelm you, but basically you want to make sure that if there's common sight words, you want to make sure that the teacher is providing a way in which the kids can learn about it repetitively. And then you also want to make sure that there's a way in which the teacher is breaking down words in smaller units and modeling how it should be pronounced. So although I was a high school and an elementary teacher, I have no business teaching reading. I cannot teach a child phonics because I'm actively code switching just standing up here myself because this is not my natural voice. So when you have teachers who have a southern drawl, the young lady, she was talking about Boston, people in Boston, they have a specific accent, right? I definitely have an accent. I cannot pronounce most of the letter sounds the way that they're supposed to be pronounced. So that may not be a good option. And so right now we're having serious conversations with districts about who are you selecting to teach reading to your students. So the ELA coordinator for the region, she is in talks with all of the ELA directors and reading directors in each district because you can't just say every teacher can teach reading just because they got certified, because they can't. And that's just the reality. Next slide. So in the state of Georgia, all of us are super intelligent, super smart, right? Even as adults. But during the pandemic, guess what happened to all of us? And there's a real word for that, and it's called literacy fatigue. Not just the kids, every single one of us went through literacy fatigue. We were not reading, we were not working, we were not doing things at the pace that we were doing prior to the pandemic. So it's not acceptable anymore for us to say, oh, well, the kids are lazy. No, all of us became lazy when it came to the amount of content that we were processing on a day-to-day basis. So the literacy fatigue that kids have experienced has caused for us to have to make up time. All right, so the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is written at what grade level? Does anybody know what grade level the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is written at? 7th grade. And then prior to I want to say it was like somebody did the study and they got embarrassed. But when I was in college here, it was actually a 4th grade readability level. And they pushed it to a 7th grade. So the average Georgian can only read at a 7th grade level. That's why the paper, the local news, is printed at that level. So for us as adults, anytime we're working with kids or we have students around us, we have to purposefully engage them in learning new vocabulary. That's one thing that we can do as a community. Anytime you see a student, teach them a new vocabulary word, because that's actually the instrument that provides for students to have a higher readability level. The other thing is that, do you see this process up here? It's called the 4-part process. The 4-part processing model for word recognition, that is absolutely positively the methodology that we use now. So that means that you actually take a picture or you actually take the physical object. You first introduce it to the student by saying, cup. All right? Then you actually break down the phonetical enunciation of it and go, and then you introduce the word. That is a 4-part processing model that should be used anytime we're teaching reading. Well, guess what happened last year when we got preoccupied with all the things that were going on? Next slide. With post-election. There were laws being passed at dramatic paces. I'm talking about before I get to one aisle, by the time you go run over to the House, they had already passed something else. So in March of this past year, they passed a law that said 3-prompt queuing was illegal in the state of Georgia. So what does that mean for your students? So actually, three-prompt cueing is not a good form of teaching for students who have trouble with reading or who struggle with dyslexia. But what this does, though, is that it leaves a huge gap between how you all are teaching reading to your kids at home and how they're learning it at school. So three-prompt cueing, it forces you to say, okay, here's rat. What other word sounds like rat? They may say sat, cat. Remember how we used to do that? That's called three-prompt cueing. That has been proven to be very confusing and actually prevents a student from actually learning how to actually know what are the sounds that go with those symbols. So if we tell you to just, what does it look like or what does it sound like? It's not forcing the kid to decode the word for themselves. But if you are teaching your baby at home that methodology and they're going to school, there's a disconnect. And you also don't want to support a teacher by saying, that's how we learned it, keep doing it that way. Because it is now illegal in the state of Georgia for you to teach it in that way. Just like it is illegal for a superintendent not to report how many students have characteristics of dyslexia in their district, right? So laws work both ways. So we can't just see the bad, we got to look at the good that comes with it, because the reality is that no one would be supporting students with dyslexia in schools as a gen ed student if we did not have a law. And that's unfortunate, but that's just the truth. So I want to just, before I tell you guys what you should know and what you should take with you and give you the link that goes to the IDA website, I just wanted to ask you all I wanted you all to be able to ask me a few questions. And let me just say this. So some of you all may be like, well, who are you and what are you doing and how come we don't have more people who get to have access to program managers and specialists and folks like that? You all are not supposed to have access to us. The general public is not supposed to have access to everything that we know and that we do, because if that was the case, we wouldn't be able to let our districts do their job. We are here to support our districts, and our districts are supposed to handle and support the public. Our job is to continue to build and develop programming that is research-based and that is in good confidence to support student learning and growth. And also to be there to check and make sure that they're being compliant about what the federal laws are asking. So I don't want you to think that every question should come to the regional office of the Department of Education or the Department of Education itself. It's just that I love you guys, and so I didn't mind sharing and telling y'all stuff. All right? So don't be like, oh, why didn't you? Well, they did. Kim said the district's supposed to do this. Well, they're getting there, but I have to go through the channels to tell who to do what. All right. So any questions? 'Cause this is a lot. Yes. Mm-hmm.
It appears to be intimately related to the state of Georgia. So how can it not
So, right. So the dyslexia law is a state law, but it is a federal law that undergirds it. And the reality is that, yes, funding is going to be cut. All right. So I've already lost my funding for the dyslexia grant. So I actually was providing scholarships for people to be able to have the training to do the grant. All right. So what does that mean, long and short? So Atlanta Public Schools is different because they have a huge, what Ken said, they have a huge, they have not the surplus, they have a huge base because of housing. All right? But I will tell you right now, if you go to Bacon County or Coffee County, there is no after school for any of these kids starting August 1. There will not be warm lunches in some of our counties across the state. They will go to school and get a cold sandwich, and they'll get maybe some milk because the federal funds were not sent. So even though we have monies that was earmarked, the state superintendent, if any of you all saw the news 3 weeks ago, he asked for the money to be sent, and he has not received a reply from Washington. Because we start school, we've already started school, because we already have teachers coming back this week. The rest of the country may not be starting school, but it is seriously impacting. So my office is federally funded at GLRS, and so we are a part of 5-year grants, so we still have grant money because the money was already sent. That doesn't mean that GLRS will be operating 2 years from now when the grant is done. But our office makes sure that all federal laws are being enforced and taking place in our regional, in all of our districts. RESA is different. So RESA is a part of the state, the governor's budget. So because he has a surplus, RESAs aren't going anywhere, right? So, and I know they talked about the surplus, but some of that money is going to stay where it's at because some of these entities and agencies have to be in place. Because one, DOE can't do the work for the whole state. And then finally, USDG, the University System of Georgia, who also is needing these monies, these federal monies. Student loan monies are being cut. So what you normally could have got, maybe like $20,000 this year, if it's a student who's on a full student loan, they're only maybe going to get $15,000. And that may not cover everything. So that's how, so yes, you're correct. All right, another question? Yes, this is Julie. Please, I don't want to.
This is probably an old question when I think about my educational background and how I learned. Do you think that over the years, as they have continued to change the curriculum, that has impacted the learning skills for the kids?
So we were a part of what? Whole Language. Whole Language actually supports 3-prompt cueing. Whole Language said, just what do you think it is? You don't have to spell it out. You don't have to know the phonics, right? And they got rid of phonics. And so all these Whole Language babies have created us in a society where everybody's reading the AJC at a 7th grade readability level, unless they have an advanced degree. So us going back to structured literacy, but using a more systemic approach to doing it, is absolutely us trying to make up for a wrong decision. Yeah.
All right. When you observe what they write or how they TTYL or how they speak this, that, is that because of this same structure that has changed over the years? Because I know I learned phonics. Yes, that was 100 years ago. But
that's a cultural piece. It's not necessarily related to that. That's a cultural piece, but we could spend a whole afternoon on that. So, and I know my time is up, but I want to say three final things before I leave. One thing is that the work that we're doing as program managers and specialists across the state is hard work, but it's good work, right? And so if I personally say, in January, I can't go somewhere, it's because I have to be at the Capitol because this stuff, if you don't catch it and have a voice and say something, then they are going to move forward with the legislation. And now we have a situation where divisive concepts and 3-part cueing, you can have teachers who can get criminally prosecuted. All right? And then in addition to that, just like you all are doing an amazing job by hosting forums like this, you have to continue to do this. Because every time you host something, that's what I had said, what could parents do? One, read and write. Ask your kids to read and write with you, but do it beyond paper and pencil. Have conversations about it, intrigue them, have them write a note about something that has nothing to do with school, but just encourage them to read and write. And then finally, know who the people are in your building beyond just the teacher and the principal. Because they're just doing what they're being told. You need to make sure that you all are reaching out and finding out, well, who's the MTSS coordinator? Who's the reading coach, right? Who are the program managers over your district? And then finally, engage in community events like this all the time. Like, just invite somebody in and say, hey, we're having something at church. Come. We want to tell you about it. Senator Estevez always comes to stuff. I love Senator Estevez. He's always so supportive of everything we do in education. But not all the candidates like education. Not all candidates care about anything that has to do with education. There are quite a few of them, and some of them who are running, who have been in rooms with us, who have told us they'd rather just have AI teach and do whatever, or have a computer do it. They think that everything we're doing is a waste of money. So that's, invite people to come and have them here so that they can be able to tell you, so you can tell them what you're really thinking. And then finally, if you have a kid, like Brother Bird, if you have grandkids, there are about 8 bags up here, and it's full of, just reading stuff. I'd love for the grandparents or the parents to grab a bag, because there's a huge initiative in Fulton County that actually has a grant to share and teach grandparents how to teach reading the new way. So it is fully funded through the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce. If you all want more information about it, I can totally give it to you. And they'll actually come to your church and hold the classes to teach grandparents how to teach their kids the new way to read. So that's all I have. Thank y'all for having me, and good luck this school year.
At the end, right, for today. Where is Dr. Vicky? Did you have some type of remarks and stuff you'd like to make, Pastor, before we get finished? We're at the end of the schedule for today.
Joan and Dr. Vicky, so I'll take their spot. Let me see your agenda. Amen. Tomorrow's agenda. Hold on, Brother Simpson. You're not leaving me, are you? Oh, you want a bag? Make sure you give Brother Simpson. All right, so let me first and foremost say thank you. There she is. Dr. Vicky, will you come forward, please? Thank you for your participation on tonight and sharing with this, our first day of our education summit. And tomorrow, you want to come on? Tomorrow we will convene at the same time, I think 6:30. And our first workshop would be social media, is that right? And then the second one would be navigating the teen years. And I think all of our students have their agenda, and then they will disperse accordingly. Is that correct?
Tomorrow, Ms. Reverend Hale is asking me to help him. So tomorrow, we still have exciting workshops for you. Here in the adult class, we do have someone that will speak with you about social media, the different social media platforms that your children are on, and how to keep your children safe. They will also speak about cyberbullying, so that you know the law as it relates to cyberbullying, whether your child is being the bully or whether your child is being bullied. And you'll know the legal ramifications as it relates to that. And then we'll have Dr. Collins, who will speak about navigating the teen years. The teen years are something different, or at least it was in our house. We had a daughter that we loved. We really wanted her. But when she became a teenager, we kept her. We still loved her, but we really wish she could visit somebody else's house a lot more often. Maybe it was just at the Hale house, but I'm telling you, Dr. Collins is going to be here, and she's going to help us learn how to navigate the teen years. But just as much as we will have workshops for the adults, we will also have workshops for our kindergarten through second graders, our third through fifth graders, our middle schoolers, and our high schoolers. So I'm hoping that you will come back tomorrow and join us. We will get started at 6:30 tomorrow. And those are all the announcements that I have.
Again, thank you all so much for coming. We hope that you enjoyed the sessions. We look forward to seeing you all tomorrow night. Thank you.
Here you go. Amen. Our heads about our hearts open. Father God, we do thank you for your love, your grace, and your mercy. We thank you for what our eyes have seen on tonight, what our ears have heard. We thank you for the facilitators on tonight. We thank you for the coordinators, Lord God. We thank you for the Secular Education Commission, Lord, and all that they mean to St. Mark and the Ben Hill community. Now, Lord, you have blessed us on tonight. Lord God, we are waiting to see what tomorrow is going to bring, because we know that you're going to blow our minds. So we wait with excitement, Lord. So we thank you. Now, Lord, as we prepare to leave this space, but never from your presence, give us traveling mercies back to our humble abodes. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, may I have your attention just 1 second? Please invite your neighbors, your friends, to come back tomorrow night with you. Thank you so much.